Since you're new to H&R Block, we'll look at your returns from the last 3 years for any money your last guy might have missed, for free.
I could get money back from last year?
You could. We'll find any mistakes.
Could have really used that 2 years ago when I dated that mistake for 5 months.
Don't leave money on the table. Switch to H&R Block and get a free Second Look review. Second Look is included at no additional cost with the purchase of tax preparation. Results vary. All tax situations are different. Fees apply if you have us file an amended return.
You are listening to Women's Running Stories, where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences.
Hi, my name is Therese Munthe, and I'm 48 years old. I live in Sweden with my family of my husband and 3 kids. I work for YMR Track Club, and I've been working with product development and production for the fashion industry for 25 years.
Yes, in this episode, you are going to hear the running story of Therese Munthe, with a focus on her incredible marathon journey, which only started a few years ago, and already she has had incredible success. But before we hear more from Therese, I want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am the host and producer of this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Before we dive in to Therese's story, I do want to mention that I was introduced to Therese through the YMR Track Club. They're a high-performance running apparel company out of Sweden, and I have done some testing and reviewing of their clothes in the past. So I just want to say thank you to Luke from YMR Track Club for introducing me to Therese, and I really do love their clothes. They source incredible fabrics, the fit is great, the clothes look amazing with great attention to detail, and the company does have a strong commitment to sustainability as well. And YMR Track Club has been generous enough to offer a discount code for me to share with you, so you can get 20% off of your order when you go to ymrtrackclub.com. Just use the discount code WRS20 at checkout and get yourself some nice new running apparel. For those of us who are still in winter, they have beautiful winter clothing, and their spring collection is coming out right about now. So yes, Therese works for YMR Track Club, and as she has discovered, she is a really good marathoner. But for most of her life, Therese didn't like running at all. This story is all about what inspired her to start running and how she's developed into the marathon runner that she is today. Therese ran her first marathon in 2021, and since then, she has run 3 more, including the 2022 and 2023 Valencia marathons, which she will talk about in this episode. And the Valencia Marathon takes place each year at the beginning of December in Valencia, Spain. A few details to know for clarity. Therese does work in kilometers. So as a reminder, the marathon is 42.2 kilometers. That translates to 26.2 miles, which is a standard marathon. So for instance, Therese mentions being at the 25K mark in one marathon, and that translates to 15.5 miles. She also mentions being at the 30K mark, which is 18.5 miles. And she mentions running paces, specifically running a 5-minute kilometer, which is an 8-minute mile pace. All right, let's get to it. Let's hear Therese Munthe's marathon story, beginning with her first experiences running in her childhood. Here to tell her story is Therese Munthe.
When I look back at my childhood, I can say that I was not a natural runner. In fact, I hated running. All kinds of running was not my thing. I always thought of myself as a bad runner and a slow runner. So the idea of running didn't excite me at all when I was a child. But I did a lot of other things. I was really into gymnastics. And later in life, it became aerobics, all kind of workouts like step up and things. And then I fell in love with Ashtanga yoga. And I did that for more than 10 years. I was really into that. And during my period when I did Ashtanga, I was hit by a car and I got whiplash. And because of my whiplash injury, I had to go to a lot of different doctors, acupuncture, you name it. And one of the persons that helped me, he said that you have to stop doing all kinds of stretching and yoga because you are over flexible. And that doesn't help you with your neck problems. So he suggested me to start running and do no stretching whatsoever. So that's actually my first contact with running. And that was a little bit more than 10 years ago. I started a little bit just because I had to. It was no love in running. It was no like, oh, I want to do this because I love it. It was more like, okay, I have a lot of problems with headache and I have to make sure that I get rid of it because it's not good for me. So that's how it started. But it was many years where I just did a little bit of jogging and then I did other types of sports. I think why I didn't like it was because I thought I wasn't good at it. And I think that came from something that I thought when I was a child. I remember we had a 2K test in school, and I was always one of the last ones in that, and I hated it. But one of the things that I know now was making me not a good runner was because I had problems with my thyroid. And my thyroid affected my stomach, so I couldn't take up iron from the food. And if you can't take up iron from the food, you can't get oxygen to your muscles. So all of that, like it all goes hand in hand and affects everything. But I didn't know that when I was a child. So I did have a couple of years after that prescription from the doctor, start to run and not stretch, where I continued not liking running because it felt horrible. It wasn't easy for me. It was hard, and I didn't have. And also, my husband is a previous pole jumper. He was a pole jumper on a very high level, and when he was running with me, he was like, "It looks really bad when you run." Like your hip have to be much more forward. And I was like, what does he mean? My hip has to be forward. I mean, it didn't make sense to me at all. So yeah, it was, like I said, a couple of years where I felt like I do it, but I don't enjoy it and I'm not good at it. But I've always also had training as a goal-oriented obsession. Not running, but other types of training. So once I realized that, okay, this is probably good for my body, but then I also have to be good at it, so to speak. So a little seed was like set in my body that I want to become better, but then I also need to understand how can I become better. And during this period, my father, he has always been a very good athlete. He's been a good runner and he's been a good cross-country skier. And me and my father was always we had the same type of mentality, and we connected always very, very good. And when he got, unfortunately, very sick, I had already started to run, but I have not started to race, and I've not started to try to become better. And when I realized that he will not stay with us for much longer, then I signed up for a marathon. Because I wanted to run a marathon and be able to talk to my father about it afterwards, before he passed away. So I would say that was like the starting point of my running. And in a way, I regret that I didn't start earlier, but you never know these kind of things. And every time I race, I feel that he is with me. And every time I pass the finishing line, I always look up to the sky and like, Dad, see how good it went. Yeah. Yeah, so when I signed up for my first marathon, I hadn't really trained for it, but I was I was just so motivated to run for my father, and I also just came back from an injury, so I was like, oh, okay. Everyone says that you should be able to run under 4 hours, so I give it a try, and I finished in 3 hours and 46 minutes, and then I realized that okay, maybe I can be good at this. Yeah, and I managed to have a chat with my father about it as well. And he said, wow, that was a really good time. And he also finished off saying, be careful, legs can be broken. And that is always kind of my mantra, that I have to be careful, because that's what my father said. Yeah, because I had been through a lot of injuries. I had 3 stress fractures because I was training too hard and I didn't eat properly. Or I reframe that. I ate properly, but I didn't fuel properly. I didn't have the right nutrition. And I would say that I didn't give my body the fuel when it needed it. So, for example, I always had a hard workout in the morning before eating anything, and then it could take an hour before I ate again. And I realized that it's so important to always have something before you train. And then, especially afterwards, you have to fuel with lots of proteins and carbs directly afterwards. So I actually connected with a really good girl that has helped me a lot with understanding how to fuel and when to fuel. And that has helped me a lot. I think it's so difficult to understand how much you need to eat. I mean, if you run that much that a lot of runners do, you have to eat so big portions of food. I mean, it's not enough of just having a little salad. You have to have a lot of food. And I think there are so many women especially that don't fuel enough. So that was a big game changer for me to understand how much to eat and when to eat. So I started to train with the coach that I mentioned, that also helped me a lot. She's not only a runner coach, she also helps a lot with nutrition and how to fuel and so on. And without her, I wouldn't have done the progress that I've done in such a short period of time. So she has not only been pushing me, I would say that she has rather taken me back, like, take it easy, don't push it too quickly, and so on. So, for example, I signed up for this run streak once, and when I did that, I hadn't been running really, and I was like, okay, let's run every day for 30 days, because that was the challenge. And I mean, a run streak, I think it is like the minimum is a mile, but I did 10K every day. So, I mean, before I had her, I don't work with her at the moment, but during the years we did work together. And before I got her, I was always doing a little bit too much, and she knew that. So it was more that she was like, you have to have at least 1 rest day per week. It's better with 2, but okay, I hear you. 1 rest day per week. And then you have to have at least 1 day where you don't run, but you do strength training. And that, I'm sure, have helped me a lot to become a better runner. So my first year of running after a program and so on, I did 1 marathon in August, and then I did my second one in Valencia, 2022. Yeah, 22. By the time Valencia came, I was in a really good shape, and I felt that on the last sessions going into Valencia as well, that all the long runs felt really good. So I think everything was working properly, and I hadn't been sick, and So I ticked all the boxes, I have to say. And that's not often you do that. And I was there with one of my good friends who had been running a lot of marathons. So she was much more experienced. She was the one booking the trips and telling me what to do. And I've never been to this big race outside Sweden before. So everything was new to me. But I felt really safe in her hands, planning everything. So I would say that everything was super positive, and I was just excited to race in Valencia, a fantastic city, and the race is really, really good. Everything was so well organized. I've heard that everyone said that the course is really flat and you can do good times there and so on. So yeah, I just had positive feelings around it before. And I was still really rookie when it comes to running marathons, so I didn't really know what to expect. I had only done 2 when I came to Valencia. So, but the idea was to run under 3 hours and 30 minutes. And my coach said to me that you cannot start quicker than 5:0 pace. I mean, 5 minutes per kilometer. But I did start much quicker. That's like been my Achilles heel since I started to run as well. I always start too fast. So I think I had an okay journey until like 25, and then it started to get really heavy. Yeah, I mean, the first 25, I didn't stop. I had my gels with me, and one of the good things in Valencia is that you get a water bottle, so you don't have to stop when you want to drink. You just grab the water and you continue to run. But when I started to feel a little bit cramping and I was tired and so on, I decided I will stop every 5K and give myself time to fuel enough and maybe pour some water over my head and like get some extra energy every 5K. And that really helped. And on some of the stations, I even walked a couple of meters, like just another 5K. So that really helped me. And I always have these like strategies when I race that I have to think about something. So I don't think about how hard it feels. The things that helps me a lot is to divide the total distance in much smaller parts, and don't think about how long do I have before I'm crossing the finishing line. I'm just going to run another 5K. 5K is not much. So that's like a mantra that keeps on going in my head. And also I've always been really good at math, and I always like calculating in my head, like, okay, this is the time I've been doing. If I do 5K in this amount of minutes, what will be the finishing time? So I focus on counting in my head all the time. That really helps as well. I hold it together really well, and I finished off a lot better than I thought. So I was super, super happy and proud of myself when I finished the goal. So I did 3:24. So just by training after schedule and doing these intervals and doing like the long rounds, and that really helped me improve my running. And obviously again, fueling my body properly, making sure to recover, sleep enough, all these. Everything was so perfect around that race. I loved the city. The race was amazing, and I did a much better time than I thought I would be able to. So everything was so positive around the race. So I think it was 1 week after the race, they always send out these letters to the ones that has participated, that you have that you can sign up before everyone else. So I signed up 1 week after. For the next year. Yeah, I mean, since I started to run marathon, I've been really time focused, and I've been really focused on cutting my times, and like I've also had really big jumps, and not only, I mean, I have managed to do big jumps as well, but I've also like, okay, now I managed to cut 3:30, which is like a goal that many has, that you want to run a marathon below 3.5 hours. So my next goal was 3 hours and 15 minutes. So I understood that I had to be faster to be able to do that. So we were training the whole spring. We were focusing on speed only. So I didn't do any marathon training. It was more towards 10K and half marathon. So those kind of races. And to be honest, that has always been much more, I haven't, especially 10K has been almost like, well, I haven't liked that distance because it's so, everyone knows what a good 10K time is. I mean, if you talk to other people. So I've had problems to do that distance. So I had I had some problems. I started 2 races and I had to go off. I couldn't finish. And the worst race that I did, I almost got a panic attack because I was so focused to finish at a certain time that my body just couldn't handle it. So it was almost getting a heart attack, actually. It was super, super uncomfortable and a bit scary as well. After 4 kilometers, I just stopped and it felt like I couldn't breathe. So during this year, I had to work a lot with my mentally, how to overcome these feelings and thoughts. I would say that was the biggest challenge that year. But it was not only that year. I think I have found a good recipe now, but it has taken a really long time. I think it is, I've been doing training my whole year or whole life, but I haven't pushed my body in that way. And that's a different feeling. When you do a 10K race, it's hard from after 2K and it feels like your lungs is going to explode and you can't breathe and it's awful. That's an awful feeling. And when I spoke to my husband about it, he's like, yeah, but that's what it's all about. And I'm like, are you sure? Is it supposed to feel like this? But I think you have to just understand that it's nothing to be afraid of. You're not going to die. You will be able to walk through this pain or run through this pain because it's not really getting worse. When you say it out loud, it sounds crazy. Why do you want to learn how to be able to handle a lot of pain when running? But it's a fantastic feeling when you finish crossing the finishing line and you manage to overcome these mental issues in your brain. But I did have a lot of pain in my body as well after that speed period of doing more speed training. So I had a little setback in August where everything felt bad. Like I had problems with my hip, I had problems with my seat, and I had problems with, the pain in my body just moved around. So I had a couple of weeks where I had, again, she was helping me, my coach, to okay, now we do other kinds of things. Let's try this. We try this and see how it works. And I managed to get through that. I obviously always have to think about how to avoid injuries. That's just, we are all different, but I always have to think about that, definitely, still. But I still learn. I'm still new to running, so I still have to think about different things and especially learn to listen to my body, which is super difficult. Is this a good pain or is it a bad pain? I always have to ask that, and I honestly still don't know the answer to that, because I still do mistakes. But I think I'm getting better and better every year. So after I had a bad period in August, and then after that everything went well again, and I went to Amsterdam and I did a half marathon, and then I ran Valencia marathon. But the day before I was convinced I was sick. I was 100% convinced I was getting sick. So I went to the pharmacy and buying all these types of pills for my sore throat that I thought I had. And I was like, I will not be able to start tomorrow. And I had my husband with me, which helped a lot. And he was like, calm down, I'm sure you will be able to start. But that was just, it's crazy how the nerves can trick you to think that you have all these different symptoms. So the day before I was super, super nervous. But waking up early on the race day, I felt, no, I can't feel anything in my throat, so I'm probably okay. Let's see how this goes. But I think also the fact that I thought that I was about to get sick in a way also calmed me down, because I didn't have any expectations. Like before, it was like the goal of finishing under 3 hours and 15 minutes was so important to me. But on the race day, I was like, yeah, I'm happy if I can do a PB today, and let's see how it goes. I was really calm that morning. I didn't feel nervous at all, or I was just, okay, let's see how it goes. And we were jogging to the start. My husband was going to race as well, but we had decided together that he was gonna only run half of it because he's having a bad back, so it won't be good for him to run the whole race. But he said, but I will not start in the same pace as you. I'm gonna be behind you. I'm like, okay, you do you and I do me. So we started off, and I just had this amazing feeling from start. Like, it wasn't heavy at all. And I did 5K and I was like, wow, this is a good time, but it feels good. I just continue. And that's how it went until 30, 33, I think. Like, it wasn't heavy at all. You don't have many of those races where it just feels easy. But around 30, 33, I started to cramping. So then I was like, this is not a good sign. I'd never cramped before in a race, so I didn't know what it was going to be like and how bad will it be and so on. But I realized that I had to slow down a little bit. So I did slow down a little bit. And I saw on the side, I saw a girl that had this kind of magnesium spray. So I went to those type of places 2 or 3 times, I think, and they sprayed on my leg. I don't know if that helped or if it was just something mentally that helped, but it didn't get worse at least. I couldn't keep up with the pace that I had until around 30, but I didn't have to slow down that much. And I think it was around 5K I realized that, wow, I will be able to finish under 3:15. And that was also an amazing race. I mean, it feels always good to be able to even do better than you thought you would.
Therese did do better than she thought she would. At the 2023 Valencia Marathon on December 3rd, she ran an incredible 3 hours, 14 minutes, and 23 seconds. Moving on to 2024, just last year, Therese set her sights on her first major marathon, Berlin. And as a reminder, the World Majors Marathons are 7 marathons that take place throughout the world. They are enormous productions, and in addition to Berlin, they include Chicago, New York, Boston, Tokyo, London, and new just this year, Sydney. For Therese, at Berlin in 2024, things did not go to plan, even before the start. She wasn't able to get into her starting corral because it was so crowded with runners. And once she got out on the course, she was weaving through so many runners that it was a lot of speeding up and slowing down. And then she started cramping. So by about the halfway point, she called it a day. But this did not dampen Therese's enthusiasm for continuing to go after faster marathon goals.
So there is ups and downs when it comes to running, yeah. But since Berlin, that was in September, I was running a half marathon in Santa Pola now in January. And talking about the mental issues I'd had with not being a fast runner, I think that race really helped me to understand that I am quite good at this and I can be fast. And I am sure that I have lots of years in front of me where I can be even faster. Because in Santa Pola, I managed to run 1 hour and 29 minutes. And that race was also like, it never felt heavy. I just ran. Around 18, I was like, okay, this is getting a little bit heavy. And I had this Spanish guy in front of me, and I think he was pacing a friend of him. And he was like, vamos, vamos, vamos. And he was pointing at his clock all the time. I was like, oh, maybe we can do under 90 minutes. So I was just tagging along with that guy. And yeah, that was really a really nice race as well. So I have a life goal. I don't know if it's possible, but I want to run under 3 hours. And since I haven't done a marathon now in more than a year, I don't really know, but I'm pretty sure that I'm capable of running under 3 hours and 10 minutes now, and then I hope to shave off some time going forward. But I would say that I've had more races that have been bad than races that has been good. And I guess you appreciate the good ones even more if you experience also bad ones. And I don't take it for granted either. I mean, I don't know how many more times I can improve my times. And obviously that's not the only thing that is important. I mean, running for me is so much more. I think if I had to choose, do you want to go for races or do you want to be able to train for the rest of your life? I mean, that choice is super easy for me. I would train for the rest of my life. So, because it makes me feel so good, and like that's like my part where I get energy to keep up with everything else in life, and I get so much energy. And it's also the whole running community for me is like, it gives me so much. I've met so many good friends since I started to run. And one thing that I love about the running community is that you get friends that are 20 years younger than you, when you get friends that are 15 years older than you, and it doesn't matter because all of you love running. And I think the running community is so open as well and so understanding. We help each other, and yeah, I love everything about the running community. It's really amazing.
The running community is amazing, and it is one consistent among the many ups and downs of training and racing. That does bring us to the end of Therese Munthe's running story on the podcast. Thank you so much, Therese, for coming on and sharing this story. And congratulations on finding so much joy and success in marathon running. And very best of luck on your future goals, especially going after that sub-3 hour marathon. I also want to thank YMR Track Club, especially Luke, for introducing me to Therese. And as a reminder, you can get 20% off your order of YMR Track Club clothing. Just go to ymrtrackclub.com and use the discount code WRS20. And you can look to the show notes. I will provide that information there. I will also provide a way for you to keep up with Therese on social media as she continues to go after more marathon goals. That is going to do it for this episode. Thank you again for being here. I always appreciate you coming and listening to these stories. I also appreciate you sharing this podcast with someone else you know will enjoy these stories too. Thank you. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I'm the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. And until next Tuesday, I do wish you healthy, joyful strides forward.
Women's running. Women's running stories.
Hear Her Sports is a podcast for everyone who loves stories by and about women striving to improve and make a difference in their lives. I am your host, Elizabeth Emery, a former professional cyclist. In every episode, I introduce a female athlete or woman in the business of sport through a thoughtful conversation about who they are and the terrific work they're doing. My guests and I explore the glorious and frustrating issues in sports, history, equity, training, nutrition, and so much more. Join us for inspiration, for community, and for love of being a strong, athletic woman.